2012, Star Citizen is announced in Game Developer Conference to a rapturous thirst and hype. 2 years later, the very first publicly playable program was provided for the wider public. Oh wait, no, that was 2013, but the PU was announced in 2014 and then released in 2015. You know what? Screw it, 2014, it's been 10 years since then, so let's get into it. Since then, it's been 10 years, $750 million, and so many updates and changes that'll make your brain leak out of your nose. Lawsuits, pay to win, exorbitant microtransactions, and beautifully designed spaceships like nowhere else. This and more has taken place in those 10 years, since the first quote-unquote playable programs that Star Citizen released, and yet there still is no end in sight. So let's take a look at what the hell was going on in this time. But before that, the video is sponsored by Exter. Exter is most known for their cool compact wallets, which they sent over. With RFID blocking plates in the real leather exterior does make it look rather sharp, holding up to 12 cards with extra pocket for cash, and obviously low profile design. But that's not the only thing they've been making. They also sent over their latest tracker card, which works with Apple's Find My app. The card is similarly compact, and with 3 months on one charge, you can throw it in and pretty much forget about it. But that's not all. In fact, there are a lot more products in their offering, so go check them out. And remember to use my super duper special code, TheYamiks, or the link down below for extra discount, which does stack with extra discounts. And speaking of which, for this Xmas season, Extra is having up to 50% discount. So with my 5% off code, up to 55% savings are yours for some cool products. So, as usual, support the companies that support my work. We begin our tale not in 2012 when the project was announced, but instead in 2014. The Hangar module, the first playable program, was delivered to hungry backers mere months before this, and all it was, well, really this. A showroom, fundamentally. At the time, it was, frankly speaking, laughable that for $100, $200, developer CIG would release something as, well, frankly speaking, pathetic as a single room with sound effects and half-baked models. But for the faithful backers, it was a glimmer of things being accomplished, and to a certain degree, it was, as you got to witness the progress. During 2013, Star Citizen unleashed tons of videos. Most of them sucked ass harder than a gay man in an orgy, but I gotta say that Wingman's Hangar in particular, if amateurish, still was passionate and genuine show. Also, in other videos, if you wonder why you see so much of Sandy Gardner, well, the answer to that is nepotism. Heavy nepotism. Anyways, the real standouts truly and still to this day remain spaceship commercial videos, thanks to which 2013 ended up with $35 million in funding. But remember that CGI, as well as the voice actors for those videos, did cost a pretty penny. And from then on, you would continue seeing some weird aggressive PR moves and deals from Star Citizen. Much like this one.
Tell you, this SSD means business. Which is kind of strange considering the Star Citizen promo on the box.
Hell, you probably got a YouTube ad before this video about Star Citizen. Or at least that tends to happen to my other space game videos when I don't mention Star Citizen. Now, let's be frank here, it's obvious what they're trying to do. But back to 2014, things were only ramping up from then on. During 2014, the project would nearly double in funding, and by the end of the year, the previous crowdfunding stretch goals would stop receiving new tiers, and this is where Star Citizen would truly become the thing we know of today. Instead of classic crowdfunding project with stretch goals, it's a spaceship JPEG marketplace with maybe a game-like program attached. Okay, no, but seriously speaking, these stretch goals you can still read on the funding page. In fact, this is where the 100 star systems originated from. However, Star Citizen has changed.
The star systems of old are not the star systems of today. They were based on the privateer and freelancer model. They were unexplorable planets with an isolated and small landing zone and had automated landings. So where does that leave us for 1.0? Well, we will not be launching with 100 star systems, because the game we have today was not just the game that was pitched back then.
Well, 1.0 is going to include 5 star systems.
And you know, that's fine. I don't begrudge CIG for tossing out the previous idea for a better execution today. However... Where are my fucking pets, Chris? You promised fucking pets! I mean, having pets? Or what about the cockpit customization, Chris? Where the fuck is that? Oh, let's not forget the motherfucking towel! The most important change that year came with the announcement of Persistent Universe Mode, the open world that we know of today. Because Star Citizen at the time went from this...
ArcCorp Tower, this is commercial vessel Calypso requesting EDL assistance. Thank you.
Yep, that's right, that was the original Star Citizen idea. No manual landings, just like Starfield today, except actually still somehow more immersive than the fucking Starfield 10 years ago. Honestly, it does not cease to amaze me how garbage Bethesda is today and how disgusting Starfield continues to be. When fucking Star Citizen, of all of the things, in 2 years managed to do what Starfield failed to do in 10. Anyways, this is why the 100 system promise seemed like such an easy thing, because you don't need to make planets and the landings can be glorified cutscenes, so making 100 doesn't seem like such a big thing. Additionally, it's worth mentioning that Star Citizen at the time was planning to use CryEngine. You know, the engine that Crytek made for Crysis games. Now, remember that, it'll be important later. Also, Roberts in these early days outsourced a lot of the game's modules and development, which led to, most infamously, Star Marine. We'll return to this story in a little bit, but first... 2015, the year was even bigger than the one before, both in funding as well as in tech-wise, as we would see the biggest visual and mechanical changes yet. First of all, the first proper showcase of Squadron 42, the single-player campaign with...
For 200 years, we have battled the Vandal. We have caught these attacks, raids, or skirmishes or incursions. But I am here to tell you that we are at war! Tiber, Orion, Caliban, Virgil, once human systems all but abandoned in the face of the enemy. The Vandal are at our gates, weapons bared while we hide and cower, retreating as they burn and decimate everything around us.
Yeah, the writing's really bad, but you know what do I know of writing, right? You also got Mark Hamill's face plastering the screens, and visuals that dazzled even my blackened heart. It was genuinely good shit right there, if I may be my crude self for a bit. Hell, you even got a release date for the thing on 2016. Yeah, well, that never came clearly. 10 years later, now we got the next release date, and will it happen? Well, you tell me. You know what, fuck that negative Nancy talk. Then came the first glance at the Persistent Universe with Alpha 2.0. Now, before this, all you had was the Hangar, a glorified broken mess of a showroom and arena commander, the dogfighting minigame. So having that open world having actually released for the backers and not just showcased through the videos was quite powerful. Sure, the thing ran like an ass, had very little to do beyond box missions and satellite missions, but it was there, and it worked. After 3 years, things were looking very promising, I guess. In fact, there was also supposed to be the release of Star Marine, the outsourced first-person shooter module. However, I quote, "They basically worked separately from the code of the main game for about 3 months, and the code paths had diverged so much they didn't merge up well," Chris Roberts claims. However, as IllFonic continued to polish the Star Marine, CIG started to ask for changes. Once different people started to see it, they'd had an idea, and once Chris liked that idea, it just had to happen, my source recalls. Every couple of weeks they wanted to add something, or they wanted to change something, and that would erase several months' work. We tried to hit every delivery, and they kept changing it. So, to save you some time, at the end of all of this, basically the IllFonic work was completely scrapped. And if you want more context, I'll have all the relevant articles and videos listed down below. But yeah, that sucked. And you know what, pardon the pun, sucked harder? Fanbase goodwill and monetary fracking. Introducing Referral Program.
As you earn more points, you will go up in what we call the recruitment ladder, and earn the relevant form title, badge icons, and rewards for each tier. The ladder does include unique items that can only be obtained in the referral program. We really want the referral program to be a way to progress without having to spend.
What can the Latvian space cynics say, really? See, back in the day, when I didn't think too hard about these things, I too engaged in it, and to this day I consider that shitty-ass golf cart as a mark of shame for myself. See, today though, I know better. See, this kind of a program is reminiscent of triangle marketing thing? I think it was called a pyramid. No, hold on, no. Lawyers, I think, prefer the term multi-level marketing. However, for Star Citizen and other games that have this sort of shit, they don't even compensate the workers. You know, in tangible ways. As a creator, I utterly hate this sort of a scheme because it turns, say for example, me, your favorite trusted creator, into a salesman for the company, rather than someone who you know, can trust. Even with best of intentions, this program has ruined a lot of goodwill and continues to do so. It's really nothing more than a manipulative recruitment program. And I say, fuck that shit! With 2016, as things were chugging along and people got to experience the persistent universe from the last year's Xmas, not much was happening. Until, once more, Gamescom.
Atmospheric head come in and scores, and also, and then maybe do picture-in-picture. Yep, there we go. So there you are, Glenn's opening up the back. Chris is bringing us down. There we go, beauty. And like pot out.
This time around, CIG showcased planetary landings. Now, even compared to Elite Dangerous, which accomplished the same feat nearly 6 months before, there were notable differences where Star Citizen, even running at a cinematic frame rate, managed very seamless transitions, all the while Elite took a loading pit stop pause moment to transition. Now, for Star Citizen, though this did not feel like a massive change as the years before, there still was a very notable progress displayed. However, not everything lined up quite as promised and showcased. For example, that story mission.
It looks like we've got a little video. Someone sent us a video message.
Hey, how are you? Miles Eckhart. Friend over Crusader said you've been building quite a rep. Glad you can make it. Grab a seat. Sorry for the locale. Don't look like much, but the homemade stuff has some kick.
Now, while you could say that we got similar NPCs in the alpha still to this day, and sure, but none of them communicate quite like what was showcased, even to this day.
You looking for somebody? Glad you could make it. Grab a seat. Sorry for the locale. Don't look like much, but the homemade stuff has some kick. Here you go.
Now, sure, you meet the NPC and it has animations, but what you get is a recycled normal bounty mission and nothing more. Nor do you get those holo recordings. But okay, let's call it what it really was. Bullshit. Actually, speaking of that, after that, CitizenCon in October. It wowed audiences with the most iconic Star Citizen gem.
Maybe that's not such a good idea. How did it? Okay, that's the first time it's ever done that. But you get to see the pull-out twice now. How did it go to the console? Did you get a key or?
You know, it's kind of funny that that worm would also be completely absent from both alpha builds for the public as well as the media until the very recently, oh god, here goes another pun, it resurfaced. So yeah, we're 4 years into Star Citizen from its announcement, and it's quite filled with a lot of bullshots now, isn't it? And that reputation sadly still carries on. But aside from hype building spectacle testicles and more ship commercials, oh wait, no, yeah, there was a shameless copycat attempted at Jeremy Clarkson.
Do you sense that electricity in the air? Do you smell those ionized particles? Do you feel your bowels loosening with a deep thrum from hundreds of thrusters firing at once? That, my friends, can only mean one thing. Galactic Tour is once again at the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo.
Now, don't get me wrong, I actually quite like Star Citizen's PR, but when it feels like 50% of your commercials and trailers consist of literally copying someone else, well, it really starts to become annoying rather than endearing. Oh, and this year Star Citizen switched engines from CryEngine to Amazon Lumberyard, a modified version of CryEngine. This will be important shortly. In 2017, the story becomes a little bit more personal, as I spend the utter minimum amount of cash to access the alpha. As it happens, 2017 would also be the slowest year since, with the version Alpha 2.6 dominating nearly all of the year. However, with 3.0 releasing at the tail end, was it worth the wait? Well, first, my own first impressions. So, originally, coming from Elite Dangerous side of things, I was looking forward to do my ship review series for Star Citizen as well, so I was going in with a rather positive mindset. However, straight away I was met with low frame rates, and sure, if it worked, I could sorta live with it. I mean, it was alpha after all. After trying out a few things were not looking particularly well, but after trying the first-person shooter mode, the Star Marine, oh boy, it only got worse and worse on. After my first delve into Star Citizen, I was also greeted by the particularities of the community as well. The constant excuse-making and, well, frankly, levels of simping I had only seen in E-Thotery, but this was for space dads. In fact, it got so pathetic that the original joke of the "it's on the alpha, don't judge it" mockery from me comes from. But okay, not everyone was like this. In fact, those were bizarre minority weirdos. Now, during my years of observing Star Citizen and my fellow creators, sure, there is a certain level of Kool-Aid drinking going on. But for the most part, they are hopeful and creative people who find the promise of Star Citizen to be worth the effort and time. And I can't blame anyone for genuinely liking a spaceship or potentially half-baked yet promising gameplay or mechanic. In fact, I myself find at least some of it incredibly cool. For example, salvage mechanics are a really great alternative to mining. And when it comes to shooter part, I won't shut the fuck up about how cool the railgun is or how cool the guns look overall. But it was 2017, and the closer I looked at Star Citizen and what had been released, promised, and delivered, the more and more I noticed the pattern of slow development. Now sure, on YouTube, CIG released tons of glossy videos, often full of nothing but bullshots. Yet back to the reality, half the shit was broken or other half was not even designed, let alone implemented. All the while you saw videos with titles like "Big change incoming, a game-changing update" and alike. Hell, you can even see that still today. And I really hate to draw comparisons to Elite especially, but here goes. Remember, Elite also started from a zero starting point in 2012. Here, for example, is how Elite looked in Kickstarter days in that 2012-2013. And then, at the end of 2014, they delivered a fully playable, designed, and optimized game that looked like this.
To line up to the slot and safely make your way out.
Now yes, of course, Elite was looking a bit dated even in 2014 if you look too close, but everything necessary for gameplay, in fact the whole suite of trading, combat, exploration, along with mining, missions and odd jobs was there in 2014. And a year later, Elite also added more depth with further upgrades, ships and other features, not to mention that it was the first one to offer planetary landings with drivable vehicles, about 6 months before Star Citizen announced it, which made me question and reflect. What the fuck was Chris Roberts doing? And let's be frank here, yes, Elite took shortcuts, there is no denying that, but the question still remains. Star Citizen, on the other hand, was wallowing in half-baked, half-broken parody that they dared to call a game, especially at the time. Now, sure, I'm being extremely harsh here by a lot of people's standards, and I have to, because while Star Citizen looked incredible, even to this day, the actual progress of finishing something, making an actual game that people already paid you for, was getting further and further from realized state. How the fuck can UI not be designed? How the fuck is FPS combat damage armor not have stats? How can ships and their weapons not have stats? Have they even been designed? No, seriously, even today you won't find stats or proper info about the FPS weapons or the ships. Cause seriously, it seems like they haven't been properly figured out yet. And it's been 10 years. It utterly pisses me off, and now, 8 years later, continues to irritate how a company can drag its feet, keep throwing out half-baked ideas without finishing a single goddamn fucking thing, and frankly, disrespect its loyal customers just cause one piece of shit can't make up his fucking mind about whether to color a fucking pixel green or blue! Yeah, so at the time, overall funding for the project was only $170 million. If only I knew how far this obscenity of lack of accountability would stretch. Okay, now granted I can get pretty opinionated about a project like this in a way that most normies would call excessively negative, but I guess then again I wouldn't be cynical space Latvian with hypercritical reviews as video series, now would I? So how about we switch off that part for at least a little while and continue with our yearly recap. So what did Star Citizen accomplish in 2017? Now funding wise it was the lowest year as internal shuffling happened, but really the only thing that the public cared for was the next update, the 3.0. Finally, with this update, you would no longer be able to disconnect from multiplayer and increase frame rates by a large number. I guess fair enough. Planetary landings were finally here, and with it, drivable vehicles. More ships, of course, to drive the continuous sails, and more or less things showcased in 2016 Citizen Con. Also, funnily enough, in this update, you would see the new system map being introduced. Now, on the first glance, it looked nice and all, but in reality, it was fucking buggy, aggravating, and frustrating to use. And for the next 7 years, up until just recently, it would stay as broken as it was. Oh, but there was one thing that made this year kinda stand out even more from others. Star Citizen got even greedier and started selling land. Yup.
And that's where the UEE land claim licenses come into play. Thanks to the enormous scale of our planets and moons, there are amazing opportunities for players to stake their claim in the Star Citizen universe.
Okay, what exactly is this right to claim?
Well, okay, so when we were designing the Pioneer, find a spot of land and build their own outpost and let the players almost join us in helping build this world. I go build my base and I log off, and some asshole comes and blows up my base when I'm logged off. And so we sort of came up with this idea of this land claim mechanic, and the idea is so you could go to a world outside of UEE space. You don't have to have a claim or do anything, and you can build a base or whatever, or hang out there, or some other player can just come in and try to take it from you forcibly. You've built a base, you log off, it could get attacked, so you'd have to worry about defending it all the time. But if you went and had an actual official Planetary Development Bureau recognized claim, so you went to a place, you placed your, what we're calling a sort of land beacon here, and you've placed it on this part of land, and then you go and file it with the Bureau. They recognize your claim, it's filed in the UEE records, and then now in UEE space, you're basically protected by them. So if...
Well, okay. What really they were selling was land claiming tools, for which there was no gameplay yet made. Now, what that claimed land would give you is insurance. Yep. If someone comes along and destroys your shit, you get it back at no cost. That's it. Or at least that was the original system plan for the base building in Star Citizen. Since then, well, it probably will change, but the info was scarce and vague at the best of times.
But can reveal that one of them will be around land ownership. Citizens will be able to purchase land anywhere in the UEE and enjoy the security that comes with it. But civilians will have a couple of restrictions as to which systems and which planets they can buy on.
But on the brighter note, I quickly discovered my all-time favorite thing in Star Citizen. If you spammed crouch button, your character's heart rate would increase and eventually you would faint by crouching. It was amazing. Oh gods, I wish they returned that feature. And I wish I hadn't lost my early gameplay footage of this. Curse you storage drive corruption! Oh, and one more thing. Crytek, you know, that Crytek who made CryEngine on which Star Citizen used to run, decides to sue Cloud Imperium for several things this year. This lawsuit would last about 3 years, so let's pick it back up in 2020 when it finally concludes to examine who was smoking and how much. 2018, Star Citizen saw a bunch of updates. With several small updates, more ships, and crap, most notable thing was mining gameplay and face over IP.
I can blink! It's a miracle! Alright, calm down. Calm down. Today we're gonna go and actually fly something in this game. I spent a lot of money on this, so let's do it.
Yep, you literally could use your webcam and face movement to change your character's in-game facial expression. While cool features, the year really felt like a massive nothing burger, which it really was. At the time I was already thoroughly disillusioned with the project, so every time somebody claimed that the playable alpha we got is just a vertical slice made me roll more and more my eyes at the back of my skull. And as hindsight proves, I was quite right. The alpha as it is CIG's best foot forward, beyond just test and development builds and not a vertical slice, especially at the time. Still, that year's progress of development felt slower and slower to a point that it was hard to ignore. At least on the bright side, I discovered another neat trick you could do. 2019. Star Citizen adds caves? And hand mining. Cool in theory, but shit gameplay with low frame rates and glitchy server connection. Oh, and this will be your gameplay in prison, so hope you enjoy it, cause you'll be doing a lot of it if you fuck up. 2020, the project reaches $300 million milestone, and after 7 years, saying that Star Citizen has already beat majority of games in both development time and funding is just a footnote. Of course, TheYamiks is getting more pissed, and CIG's constant PR circus along with constant feature reworking, lack of base design and pointless new feature additions don't help. But you know what? Fuck TheYamiks. How is Star Citizen? After reading through the patch notes, reliving my own adventures, frankly, I once more can't say that much has changed. Little features here and there, but they don't really add to the finished or more playable state of the alpha. Anyways, prisons are now a place in Star Citizen, so like I said, hope you enjoy hand mining, cause you're gonna be doing that, or log off and not play. Yep, that's by design. Either you do shit gameplay, or log off and wait timer off. Now guess which one I'm gonna be doing. Genius design, man. And sure, you can break out as well, but you need a friend for that, and it is kinda interesting, but no. CIG this year would also showcase the inventory system, which would see the light of the day for the public a year after. However, frankly speaking, I fully and thoroughly despised it from the day one. It's ugly and does not even look like Star Citizen at all. It works worse than any other inventory system I've ever used, even to a point that it might just be the worst inventory system I have ever touched, including Asset Flip early access garbage from itch.io. Yep, that's how bad it is, and I completely hate it. And aside from those, I really struggle to mention anything else. Yes, sure, I am the cynic in the crowd, but still, come on. Well, I guess there's no other choice but to discuss the elephant in the room for the past 3 years, the lawsuit. So then, Crytek v CGI. The lawsuit is brought by Crytek, claiming numerous things that you can read up on a rather interesting write-up. I'll link it down below, but the gist of the suit was, Crytek claims that the contract they made with Roberts and CIG, they would make one game, not two, namely Star Citizen and Squadron 42. Also, that CIG would exclusively use their engine for this purpose. Remember Star Citizen switching to Lumberyard in 2016? Yeah, this was starting to sell like a petty lawsuit. And then, it makes even more sense when around this time Crytek was struggle bossing pretty hard. So, to general public it all smelled and looked like a petty bullshit because Crytek ran out of money. And sure, while it is a massive dick move by CIG to go back on their word using CryEngine only, I also can understand the obvious limitations in it. So, at the end of 3 years, what constituted as a legalese bullshittery ended up on charges getting dismissed by the court or dropped entirely, which again is what seems to happen when you're petty enough to go fuck around for long enough to find out. On another note, funding-wise, this was actually one hell of a year, despite my rather unimpressed description. I could attribute this to higher quality video work on YouTube and other media, as well as release of smaller updates with variety of the so-called content and features. Again, despite my dismissive takes. 2021. The pandemic was in full swing for about 2 years now, and what did Star Citizen accomplish? Well, for one, through the last few years, minor changes have been made for reputation and crime and punishment systems, but somehow I struggle to find them impactful other than the grind meter that prevents you from getting better missions. What was impactful, however, was the shit garbage inventory systems release. I seriously don't know what these otherwise genuinely capable UI artists and UIX coders were thinking. Somewhere along the line, medical gameplay gets introduced with healing and reviving, as well as the Cloud City in a gas giant. I mean, it's cool as an idea, you know, from Star Wars floating city, but ultimately it served as yet another attempt to copy popular media. At this time, you'd also start hearing from both developers and community talk about this thing called server meshing, the so-called revolutionary system that would turn Star Citizen into an open world without servers, where as you move in the game world, you get transferred seamlessly from server to server. But till we actually get to see something come of it and actually gameplay not sucking, I'll remain skeptical and unimpressed. And speaking of performance, the reason Star Citizen performance sucks is that the garbage servers are trying to handle far too much garbage data and needless things like the positions of trash items and much more. This leads to horrible server tick rate of about 10 to 15, which leads the AI to be as garbage as this. And much more, most notably massive framerate hit. Yes, the crap framerate in Star Citizen is in big part thanks to the servers sucking ass. And while some fans are hoping that the server meshing will be the silver bullet for most if not all performance and bug and glitch problems, I remain excessively skeptical. On the bright side for some, second Star System Pyro gets showcased after, what, 6 years? Fuck me. Still not playable yet though. Oh, and did you know that this year my fellow creator, ThePilot, you know, the one who used to make those cool spacey shippy reviews, you know, the ones that were slightly worse than my spacey shippy reviews, and I'm totally not biased about that, yeah, he went from being a content creator to working for CIG and remained there for a couple of years, till 23. And I know some of you probably are asking, yes, he's alright and he's doing okay after working there. As we're approaching to the current day, in 2022, I decided to do something incredibly funny with Star Citizen. Since my Threadripper rig had enough space on my RAM, I thought it'd be really interesting to make a RAM disk and test what happens when you give Star Citizen maximum storage speed. Now, for results on that interesting experiment, you can check out later, but I promise, you'll learn a thing or two. Also, this year, that floating city from the last year hosted that FPS event, Siege of Orison, which predictably ran like complete ass due to AI being completely broken or bogged down thanks to server hamsters exploding at Amazon warehouses. And more than anything, being an FPS fanatic, this, unlike most other things, felt like a particular spit in my face. See, I love guns, and Star Citizen has a lot of cool stuff, but this coolness gets utterly destroyed by the sheer unplayability of it, and that's just sad. Oh, and speaking of that, CIG this year decided to up the server player counts from 50, yes, until now it was only 50, to 100 players, something that even early MMORPGs were managing. And yeah, Star Citizen can be a bit more complex, but still. Then among all the other little minor features and updates, we got rivers. Yes, the watery things that run down the planet's butt crack. What a massive addition. Ooh, right? Oh, but on the bright side, Star Citizen finally this year reached $500 million. And the most notable feature this year was a golf cart racing track. Oh, for fuck's sake! 2023. This actually was quite an interesting year. Sure, Star Citizen implemented the whole persistent testnet streaming thing, turning the alpha in the first week of the update into a massive sea of discarded hospital gowns and trash heaps, which was honestly kind of funny. Then actual spaceship racing tracks were added into the persistent universe as a part of a mini-game-ish thing, which I am a particular fan of. And then salvage gameplay is also added, which if you read the original pledge tiers, it actually is listed as one of them, and as a surprise is a great mining gameplay reskin. And it is kinda obvious for a spaceship game in general, so it's nice to see and would be nice to see in more games. But most of all, during the CitizenCon, the first actual gameplay showcase of Squadron 42 was presented, with no surprise running at 30 FPS and motion blur on. But even so, visually it was impressive and really interesting. However, the cynic in me can't wait but to say, yeah, well, let's see how it actually ends up, huh? Will it be yet another Cyberpunk launch, or will it actually work? At the time, Mr. Roberts claimed that the Squadron 42 was feature complete, but how long it would take for them to optimize it, yeah, we'll see. But even so, after the last 4 years of bullshit, even I got interested to see what would happen. And so we come to this year. I already released my yearly comparison to other space sims, and this time giving my fellow creator DigDad the spotlight to cover what's been going on in the verse, so for reference you can go check it out. But in short, aside from the usual nothing burger with minor changes and updates that your average Jim Bob doesn't care about, we got an actual wildlife on planets. It does suffer from the usual NPC AI problems, and yet we still have no fucking pets! For me, the biggest change this year was the UI rework, for the second time. No more garbage system map, and thank fuck for that. On the tech side, the Vulkan API implementation is in experimental stages and providing less frames than DirectX 11. How did they manage to do that on release? I don't know. Then we have more talks about server meshing taking place and even some testing for dedicated testing backers. Apparently a lot of issues, but 500 player count has been reached, then 1,001, and now, last I heard, it was 2,000 was attempted. And here's how it looked.
Nobody run in here, we'll f***ing glitch! Stop! 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 Everyone's let go of your keyboard!
Just go.
Yeah, no comment. Then the most annoying part of the last and this year has been the introduction of Master Modes, a change to the flight mechanics and combat, basically turning dogfighting into shitty bumper cars by slowing the top speeds down. And speaking of new stuff, Pyro, the second star system, has been finally given for the super dedicated backers to test. Up until just recently, the regular plebeian has been given a chance to take a look at it. Now, overall, Star Citizen is still not looking like a game. However, the same could not be said about the single-player Squadron 42, which this year got another presentation. This time, a prologue full playthrough, which crashed twice during a live showcase, but regardless, the most important part is that we got a release date, set in 2026. Yes, 10 years after the supposed original release date. Yeah, you'll forgive me if I won't hold my breath for this one either, but if it releases, well, oh boy, it's gonna be interesting to dissect for sure, where most of the money has been funneled into. Now won't it? And so, it's been 10 years. 10 years that passed since Star Citizen's first PU, the Persistent Universe, has been shown off, and what an interesting and frustrating ride it has indeed been. I do wonder if people knew back then, those 10 years back, that there would still be no game, no proper gameplay cohesion or, hell, even baseline design. What would they say, I wonder? But okay, maybe I'm just too nitpicky, and of course there are people who are happy with a mini-game and call it a full game, and my Latvian standards are just far too high, and ooh, and I suppose fair enough. All I got to say is I don't want to eat slop and be happy about it, but you know, that's just me. Okay, I'm getting snarky again, but can you blame me, really? But anyways, in these 10 years, Star Citizen went from extremely promising to bloated but endearing mess to whatever the fuck it is now. A massive pay-to-win circus for, what, whales? Still, visually, it does look good, and maybe that's enough for some. Maybe in the next 10, you'll see the light of the day for the real release, but who knows? Was that a joke or a prediction? Well, you tell me. In 10 years.